But the greatest investment I've made is in Purple Circle, which is your organization, I believe, with Davis Wynn. And I have loved working with your team. You're really elevating me in a way that I haven't been able to do myself. And in particular, Davis is really great. Davis and Marco are so great at creating structures and creating processes. I have many superpowers, but that is just not one of them. And so finding people who do that well, and I'm so glad that I found Purple Circle because you do it really, really well, has been the best investment that I've made in my business in a long time.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Wynn, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host Regen, and today's guest is Laura Labovich, an award-winning career strategist and CEO of the Career Strategy Group, where she helps companies conduct compassionate layoffs that protect both brand and people while helping displaced employees land new roles twice as fast as the national average. With a career that began in HR at Walt Disney World and AOL, Laura experienced firsthand the human toll of corporate downsizing, an experience that inspired her to build a firm dedicated to transforming one of the hardest moments in business into a process rooted in dignity, clarity, and hope. For nearly 2 decades, she has partnered with more than 150 organizations and thousands of professionals to navigate layoffs, pivots, and reinvention with empathy and strategy. She's also the author of the book called 100 Conversations for Career Success. And it's a pleasure for me to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you, Regen. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming, Laura. I wanted to talk to you about your beginnings. So it's been almost 2 decades with your coaching business. Initially wanted to understand what inspired you to become a coach and then start your own coaching business.
Yeah, great question. So when I was younger, I always knew I wanted to go into human resources. It's just a weird thing. I was 16 years old. Actually, I think I was younger. I think it was like 13 when I first learned about this career. So when my friends were talking about doctors and lawyers, and I was like, I want to be an HR manager. So kind of a strange, strange dream to have. But I ended up going into HR at both, like as you mentioned, Walt Disney World and America Online, and I loved the impact that I was able to make. At Disney, I recruited people all over the country for the college program, food and beverage managers, and really had a great time. And then with AOL, I helped launched the college program and worked as an HR manager, so help people be happier at work. Then the merger happened with Time Warner, and things sort of went south. It was the biggest failed merger at that point in the US. And I went swiftly from helping people be happy at work to having to lay off hundreds of people. And I remember coming home and being really discouraged and really sad. I believe my husband kept Hallmark in business that year because I was no longer working with my values, right? I was working against my values, which, as anyone knows, that's like a really hard experience to be in. And so I was laying my friends off. I was in the room with the managers, laying my friends off, watching them walk out the door with a box. It was really hard. It was the hardest thing I had to do in business at that point. And when they left the room, they would go into another room where the outplacement folks were set up. And I didn't know what outplacement was at the time. And they were coming out a little bit less unhappy. They weren't happy, but they were a little less unhappy. And I said, who's in that room? How do I get in that room? And at that moment, I decided that's where I wanted to be. And so I ended up having kids, doing a little bit of a career pivot. But when I decided to go back to work, I did not do it in an HR capacity. I decided I wanted to volunteer in a career center and learn how to help people, make this pivot and show up in a way where, they experience a downsizing or they experience some kind of a, hiccup in their career, that it is not the end, right? To know that this too shall pass. And I learned how to write resumes. I learned how to coach. And honestly, unbeknownst to me, I started a business. It was like very organic. I never set out to be a business owner. And then in 2009, so I did that in 2006. And in 2009, I had my first corporate contract that was for outplacement. And we were doing a downsizing of 20 folks, had to do some workshops. And that's when I sort of came full circle, where at that moment in 2002, I was like, now I am really helping people. Not that you're not helping people in HR, but it was a really tough year for me. And so this was, I think, where my calling was at, right? And that's when my business sort of became the iteration that it is today, right? The first corporate client I had, which actually was a Fortune 500 company. So kind of odd that the first corporate client I had was this enormous energy company. But then after that, that's where I decided to move into the outplacement space. So since then, we've, worked with 150 companies all over the world. And I just feel very blessed to do this work because it's really impactful, and watching people go from sort of, many of whom are rock bottom, really worried about putting money on the table, but also like, their identity, losing their identity, not knowing that there's often a better path for them, an exciting path for them, is just really fun. And I know that that's there for them and they don't see it. And so it's a great experience. I feel very blessed to do this work.
That's amazing. And just to confirm for my knowledge as well, when it comes to outplacement, basically after they're being laid off, there's the outplacement that happens that basically finds another place where they can work, right? Essentially, in easy words.
Yeah. So it's different. Okay, good question. And thank you for clarifying, because outplacement is often mislabeled. I think people believe that it has something to do with placement, like recruitment, right? And it's not that. It's about helping those folks find new work, but not in a placement capacity, right? So we're teaching them, we're preparing them. I like to think of, it's like if you were a product, right? You were like a box of chips, right? And you were originally on the shelf at Food Lion. And now Food Lion is no longer going to place you. So now you need to figure out, are you going to go into a high-end specialty store? Are you going to go into an airport? Where are you going to be placed? And how we create that merchandising, right? How do we package you? How do we market you, right? Where do we get you on the shelf? Right? You're not at Food Lion anymore, but where are you going to be? And so we're preparing them for that exit, and we're preparing them for where they're going to be, where they're going to end up. So it's resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, job search strategy, getting them confident in the interview process, getting them confident in compensation mastery, helping them onboard in their first 90 days, making sure that their new job is a success. So it's all of that. I do work with headhunters. We are not a headhunter, but we do work with them. So we can help our clients, make introductions to the right headhunting team, and also to our previous clients as well. We'll always do introductions whenever we can. But that's what outplacement is. It's really taking this what could potentially be a very hard landing, right? When you get the news of being downsized, and making it a very soft landing, because you're moving them out of the rearview mirror, being focused on sort of the sadness and the bitterness and what could have been, into this future facing, what's possible for me. It's a very exciting time if people can embrace it. And a lot of them do.
So you're basically giving a lot of hope and clarity that this is not the end. This is just the next season for them. And when thinking about the types of companies that you work with and the individuals as well at the same time, is there a certain ideal client profile, if you can say that, certain industry, demographic, psychographic? What are some commonalities that you're seeing?
Yeah. So initially, when I started this outplacement journey in 2009, we worked with all kinds of companies. We still do. We still take anyone that wants to work with us because we know that we can help them. But in terms of who we love working with, I would say the most, in sort of an ideal client profile, is going to be that mission-driven nonprofit, or the purpose-driven association, B Corp, social impact organization. Like these companies that know in order to make a living, they have to also make a difference. And I feel that has been my whole experience in business, is that I want to make a living while making a difference. And so when I get an individual who comes to me, both an individual that says, I'm a mission-driven professional that wants an executive role in like a nonprofit, or an executive role in a company that's doing good things, and then the company that is doing good things. And It's interesting, Regen, because like those companies are drawn to my firm, as a small but mighty woman-owned business. Companies like the work that we're doing because we are very focused on helping companies do good in the world. And outplacement is one of those things that's an extension of doing good things in the world. There are lots and lots of reasons to do outplacement. It reduces workplace violence. It reduces employer litigation. It helps create a great employer brand. It helps you continue to be the employer of choice, but also it's the right thing to do, right? It's just the right thing to do. And so companies that are already doing good in the world, they naturally gravitate towards wanting to offer outplacement.
Makes a lot of sense. And for these companies and the individuals as well, what is the engagement they have with you? What is it like to work with you? Are there certain programs or certain offerings that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, I would say, off the shelf offerings, right? Like we have sort of tiered services that can go from, a 1-month engagement to a 12-month engagement. And those are different price points. And usually in each of those, they're going to get coaching, for a month or 12 months, whatever it is. They're going to get usually a resume, a cover letter, and a LinkedIn profile that's fully crafted for them. And they're beautiful. The work that our writers do is just phenomenal. And they're award-winning writers. There's a competition called the Tories, the toast of the resume industry, and many of them have won that competition, which is like a nationwide competition. It's really an incredible effort. And some of our resumes, and I know I'm going a little tangential here, but some of our resumes, they start in DC and then they move, these people move other places. And so I've received calls from recruiters in like Connecticut and Vermont, and they'll call me and say, your resume just walked through my door and I want to send people to you. It's one of the best compliments we can receive. But so it'll include a resume and a cover letter, LinkedIn profile, which reduces the time that job seekers are spending having to tweak and modify their resume on their own, and gives them back that time in the job search, right? In addition, we have partnered with a firm in Canada that does outplacement. We are one of their preferred providers in the US. And most of our clients will receive 12-month access to their job search portal, which is just an incredible, it's a tracking tool. It has networking scripts. It has a lot of AI built in as an online course for job search, career exploration, like salary tools. It's incredible. Soup to nuts, online learning. And then the folks that, this is not in every package, but if you are an individual looking for work with us, we do include until you land support. So folks that would work with us, let's say they get 10 hours of coaching. Then once they're done with that service, they're going to be moved into our alumni program and they're going to get support until they land. It's really a wonderful service. And so a lot of the packages that we offer in the outplacement space will also get an until you land support.
That's beautiful. And I like the until you land support. So you're always with them. When thinking about these individuals, we mentioned this on the intro as well, about you helping displaced employees land roles twice as fast as the national average. What are some strategies and mindset shifts that make the biggest difference in speeding up that process? You also covered this a little bit in your answer earlier. We were talking about the resumes, the LinkedIn profile. These are the strategies, and there could be more too. But if we're focusing on the mindset shifts, what can we say there?
This is the biggest. If I could share one thing that we do for our clients, it is the mindset shift. And we do a lot of stuff, but this one shift from being a passive job seeker to being a proactive, active job seeker is the biggest gift that we can give our clients. And without going into the details of what they do, in general, most of our clients come to us, Regen, and they are, they're applying for jobs online. They are not seeing any progress. They are not hearing back from employers. They are starting to get very discouraged, and they believe that it is about them, right? They think there's something wrong with them. And it's a gift for us to say to them, here's the good news. There's nothing wrong with you. This process of job search and how people apply, it's broken. Because employers ask individuals to apply online, but they do not look for those people until the very last resort, right? They are actually focused on employee referrals. Who do they know? Who can they get that they already know, right? So that's who they're looking for first. And then they might look at headhunting firms or agencies. And at the very last resort, they're going to dip into their applicant tracking system. So it's the way in which job seekers are taught to search is actually the opposite way in which employers hire. And so we're teaching them how to step out of what we call the cattle call and stop mooing like every other animal and to start focusing on what actually works. I liken it to they're on this train and they keep going to stations that are empty, right? And so we're going to take them off that train. We're going to repivot them to a strategy that works. And when they get to the end, they're actually going to know that that's the right journey, right? So we teach them how to identify target companies, how to go after those companies to get meetings, how to be a proactive job seeker, how not to just give their resume to someone and hope that something is going to happen, because that just does not work anymore. So this mindset shift is so, so important, from being a passive job seeker to being an active job seeker.
Absolutely. And so right now, for any individual that wants to find you or work with you, and this is a question that mostly coaches are going to find interesting, is in terms of marketing, what marketing channels have you seen working very well for you, where people actually find you most efficiently?
Yeah. Been in business 19 years. So I've done everything. I feel like I've done everything there possibly is. I will say, like, in the beginning of my business, the one thing that worked for me, actually, there were two things. One was I created a signature speech and I gave it everywhere. And I did it for free. So I'd do lunch and learns. I'd go to local women's groups. I just spoke and spoke and spoke. And it was always on job search. So I became known as the person who talked about job search. In addition, the second thing I did was I joined an association. And the association I joined was called Career Directors International. And I was in a room with a bunch of people who, what I say, did what I did, right? Or do what I do. And I think that's really important, because being in a room where people do what you do, there is always going to be someone who is ahead of you and who you can learn from. And that's exactly what happened with me. And so I went to this conference. I had been a career coach maybe for, I don't know, like a week. It was recent, right? It was like a recent endeavor. And I walked in and I left like a deer in headlights with 40 pages of notes. And it was really just an amazing experience for me to elevate my brand, to learn I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, I really didn't know anything, but I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know how to find it. And so going on this journey, going to this association was a huge investment for me, but it was the right investment at the time. I believe that most people, most professionals, most job seekers, definitely career coaches, should at every point of their career be in a room with people who do what they do. And they should also be in a room with people who need what they do, right? So, if I'm working with, if I'm always in a career association and I'm learning from people who are ahead of me, and then when I get big and I know what I'm doing, I can always teach people that are new in the industry, right? Because I think that's really important. But also to be in a room where people who need what I do are. So for me, like tonight, for example, I'm going to a happy hour with like a nonprofit association, because those are my people, right? So we're going to all break bread. We're going to all eat ice cream. And I'm going to be in a room. I may be the only career coach in the room, right? In that nonprofit association. That is a good thing. And so I always recommend being in a room with people who do what you do and being in a room with people who need what you do.
That is amazing advice. I've actually also received the other end of that advice for coaches mostly, and this might not work marketing wise, but it just gives you perspective, is often meeting people or being around people that do something that has nothing to do with you just to get perspective. But I feel like that marketing wise does not work, but it gives you perspectives. I totally agree with you in going to these events too. So right now, with your coaching business, I wanted to touch upon another topic, which is important for coaches too. When it comes to investments that they have done, what have been some investments that you have done that were good investments, or you learned a lot or got a good return from? Could be investments of time, could be investments of money. And what have been some investments that you would have preferred to have avoided, if there's any of those?
Oh my gosh. We need an entire podcast of just the investments I've made that have been really bad decisions. So we're going to have to schedule that next, because that could be a way longer conversation, Regen. I would say, so I will tell you what have been good investments up to this point, and then what's the best investment I've made in the last couple months. So early on in my business, I've already shared being in an association was the best investment. I still say that's the best investment I ever made. In the middle of my business, I think it's really important to join an association and get involved. And as an example, because HR people are the people that I serve, right? So as an outplacement provider, we serve HR. So I'm involved in our local human resources leadership forum. I'm involved in HR roundtable. And I'm on committees and I volunteer and I get involved. That is a great way for for you to increase your visibility and for people to know you. I have done SEO. I've done AdWords. To some degree that has helped. I've had firms that have been amazing and firms that have been very poor. But in the beginning, it was a very good investment because my goal for SEO was to land on the first page of Outplacement DC. And that, so when people searched outplacement provider DC, that I was on the first page of Google. And I that happened. And I think I'm still there for many folks who search. That's really important, right? That's an important thing. And that sort of SEO juice can last a long time. And I think that it's important to time that right. Like for me right now, with all of the layoffs that are going on in the government, having SEO juice is really important because right now companies are searching for outplacement DC, right? But if the economy is really good and most companies are not laying off, investing in SEO probably isn't a good idea. So or maybe changing it a little bit so that I'm focusing more on a B2C audience. So really understanding the timing around that in terms of what's going on with the economy was important for me. Most recently, I don't think this is going to be a surprise to you, but the greatest investment I've made is in Purple Circle, which is your organization, I believe, with Davis Wynn. And I have loved working with your team. You're really elevating me in a way that I haven't been able to do myself. And in particular, Davis is really great. Davis and Marco are so great at creating structures and creating processes. I have many superpowers, but that is just not one of them, right? And so I learned a while ago that I need to have people around me who are good at this. My operations manager, for example, she is phenomenal in creating systems, creating structures, and making sure that things sort of go as clockwork, right? That's just not my superpower. And so finding people who do that well, and I'm so glad that I found Purple Circle because you do it really, really well, has been the best investment that I've made in my business in a long time. Also, I made an investment recently that enabled me to create a portal for my job-seeking clients to tap into, and receive service on an ongoing basis. So everyone that we work with will get 12-month access to this portal. And it's just really elevating my brand because we're competing against some of the big brands. And now we absolutely can deliver in the same way that, some of those other companies, I won't name them, but some of those other companies can do. And I'm just really excited. My business is in a really good place. We are serving the people that I have always wanted to serve. We're making a difference, and we're helping people land faster and giving them support until they do.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you for the nice words. And when thinking about the investments that you mentioned earlier too, I was thinking about SEO. I come from a background, I was actually an SEO specialist at a certain point. And one of the things that I worry about when I think about SEO is now that we have ChatGPT and we have AI, and how many people are going to Google versus going to ChatGPT. But there's actually the terms that you're talking about are kind of like evergreen. You'd think that naturally you'd go to Google for that type of search, you probably wouldn't trust ChatGPT at that. You just want to find actual articles that humans have written or findings that humans have done, as opposed to AI.
It's so funny you should say that, because if you knew what I was searching for right before we got on this call, it was, get this, ready? I was asking ChatGPT to tell me how folks can find me on ChatGPT, like on AI, right? And I said, give me the steps, because actually lately, when people go in and they find my website and they submit the contact form, more and more people are saying, I found you from Claude, I found you from Gemini, I found you from ChatGPT. And so I'm like, I want more of that. That sounds great, right? So I would like to know, like, that's happening organically, but I would like to know how is that happening, right? And so now I'm looking at investing in companies that can help me not increase my SEO, but increase my SEO on AI, right? So that when companies go in, and I thought maybe it was because I use AI all the time, but no, apparently not. So So there's some strategy for you to employ to have individuals and companies find you through AI. And I think you are right in that companies are going to be using AI as an alternate, and they are to Google. And so that is going to be really important in the future. And I'm definitely going to be investing in that because I want companies all over, when they're searching for outplacement, that the career strategy group comes up, front and center. So that's what I'm working on next.
Yeah, it's so interesting that Google was the only place where people would go to. It was like a monopoly. And now that era is over. But the thing about AI is that I find that it feeds off of the data that it finds in search engines anyway. So the good thing about timing here is that you were already doing good on SEO. So search engines will find, like AI will find you through search engines too. So,
Yes.
and now that you're investing on it, again, good timing.
Yes, it is.
Because
It's really good timing.
more people are going to AI. So that makes a lot of sense. And brings me to my final question, actually, which is for other coaches again, who want to scale their impact, want to change people's life, reach out to more people. What advice would you give to these coaches who are trying to scale their impact?
My advice would be sit down, take an inventory of what you do well and what you are doing in your business that is draining your energy or is keeping you from living your best life. And I would take an inventory for a week and then identify those things that you can start to offload to other people, whether it's a virtual assistant or, a partner or a referral source, so that you can actually do what it is that you do best. I did that early on, and actually it led to the kind of business I have today. Ultimately, what I think I'm really good at in my business is being a cheerleader, being an ambassador, I love community outreach. I'm also the president of the Women Business Owners of Montgomery County. And so I love being in the community. I love helping people understand what outplacement is. But what I got burnt out on early on is actually the coaching and the writing. And so I found great people for my team that do that work and weren't good at sales, didn't want to do sales. They just wanted to coach and they just wanted to write. And so I get to do what I do really well by stripping away the things that burn me out or took my energy. And so I think if you want to scale your impact, you have to really lean into the fact that you cannot do everything in your business. The first leap that people make is getting a virtual assistant. I think that leap is the biggest change in people's business. So when I hear people say I can't afford it, or I really need it, but I can't afford it, I think that's the first thing, you need to carve out money for. Because once you watch the stuff that you don't want to do, or the stuff you no longer feel is helping you to generate revenue, and you give that to someone else, it frees you up to do the things that, one, you're good at, and two, are revenue generating activities. I think that's probably the best advice that I can give. It's helped me to scale my business to 20 coaches and writers, to 150 companies that we support, to a national brand, by really focusing on what it is I love to do and getting rid of the things that I don't.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Laura. And actually, it's been the feedback that I gotten from so many coaches that they like to do coaching. They don't like to do marketing and sales and some other operations that don't involve coaching or working with clients. And to some extent, you have so many hours a day. So even coaching in a way will be something that you will hire for in the future, just like you have. So that is a great advice. And it starts with that VA, just like you said, is like the first step. So thank you so much.
Gateway drug. I feel like it's the gateway drug to like a big business, right? As like a virtual assistant. That's how they should market themselves.
So yeah, get a taste first with a VA, and then you'll see. You'll be hiring much sooner the other roles too.
Exactly.
So for anyone who wants to find Laura or connect with Laura, they can go into LinkedIn and look up Laura Labovich. They'll be able to find your profile. They can also go into the website, thecareerstrategygroup.com, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right.
We'll put that in. And if they want to email you, they can also email you at laura@thecareerstrategygroup.com to get in touch directly. Thank you so much, Laura. It was lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Regen. It was delightful. I had a great time. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.